go Silver, away! Get 'em up, Scout!
All right, that is the music and the fingers of the late Glen Campbell, a native of Delight, Arkansas. I am joined now by the Delight of the Democrat-Gazette these days, Rex Nelson, columnist over at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Roby, and seeing that is my neck of the woods, I probably ought to issue a minor correction. The Campbells actually lived out at Billstown, which is a suburb of Greater Metropolitan Delight. So, the boy from Billstown.
Exactly. No, you are absolutely accurate on that. That's good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the life of Glen Campbell. I mean, this is another Arkansas native, really a bit understated in the grand scheme of things. I mean, he was really, once you're reading his obituary, he did so much.
Well, I read somewhere where in this country, he sold more records than the Beatles did in 1968. Now think about that for a minute. And so I think when we look back on this small state and who were our biggest figures on the national and international stage, I was racking my brain earlier this week, and he has to go up there with the likes of Bill Clinton and Johnny Cash. He really does.
Yeah, and we have seen the state of Arkansas has certainly done a lot to promote its musical heritage. We've got the 167 Rock and Roll Highway. You got the Cash Home up in Dias. Al Green in the State Business Hall of Fame.
Born in Forest City.
Now you've got Glen Campbell and his Arkansas connection. There's been some conversation about doing something bigger with musical heritage in Arkansas, and I'm leaving out Jimmy Driftwood up in the Ozark Mountains.
Oh, absolutely.
Bluegrass and folk. What is it time to restart that conversation?
Yeah, you know, we've got an Arkansas Entertainers Hall of Fame, but that exhibit's kind of lost now down at the Pine Bluff Convention Center. Now, I'm not automatically advocating right now that we move it from Pine Bluff, but maybe we ought to look at somehow either generating more visitors there, updating those displays, or if we did move it, where's a high-profile area? Well, immediately to my mind, the Maurice Bathhouse has not been leased at Hot Springs. That's just an example of, I think, the kind of thinking we need to start doing as a state to really promote these people from a musical standpoint that have meant so much to the nation and the world, not just Arkansas.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, just think of the axis points where we're at. You've got Nashville and the Grand Ole Opry. You've got Austin and its music scene, Austin City Limits. I mean, we're on that y-axis right there. And then you go New Orleans, Memphis, St. Louis, Chicago. I mean, we're straight up and down in there, too. I mean, there's a real opportunity for Arkansas to be at the epicenter of some sort of musical heritage trail.
Oh, I could not agree more. You know what Arkansas State University has done at Dice with the Johnny Cash home has been wonderful. Those numbers are really starting to pick up. There's now an effort, as you know, to raise funds right now for the Levon Helm home, which has been moved into Marvel, and you're going to have a statue there. Yeah, he's from Turkey Scratch, which is a suburb of Greater Metropolitan Marvel, just like Billstown is to Delight.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. So Kane Webb and Stacey Hurst, if you're paying attention, we're just stoking the fire a little bit more. Let's restart that conversation.
We need to do more. Mississippi has done a much better job than has Arkansas, whereas our musical heritage is just as rich or maybe richer.
I don't think it's been from lack of effort, though, because I mean there was some push at one time a few years ago to do something centered around Johnny Cash here in Central Arkansas, and it fell apart. It never really became public because I don't think that things worked out.
Right.
But there was a lot of conversation about that. Let's move on. You have been traveling around the state. You've been up in northwest Arkansas, the great state of Eureka Springs, where there's some things happening from a tourism perspective.
Well, of course, Eureka Springs is unique. I love the place, but tourism there has been pretty stagnant for a number of years. And I was visiting with some people there in Eureka Springs, and there are several interesting trends there. One interesting trend that Jack Moyer, who has long been the general manager of the Basin Park and the Crescent Hotel, told me is that their biggest area to draw from now is right down the road. It's people who just want to get away from Benton and Washington counties, and they can be there in an hour or less, and it's a great place to spend the weekend. And one of the trends he told me he is seeing is that he thinks more and more of those old Victorian homes in Eureka Springs will cease to be bed and breakfast inns and will become weekend getaways from some of our newly minted millionaires, if you will, in Northwest Arkansas. So that's an interesting trend, is that they're now plugging into that tremendous wealth right next door as kind of the quick getaway for Benton and Washington
That is
counties.
interesting because, you know, Benton and Washington counties, a lot of their visitor traffic or tourism traffic is business related. It's not
absolutely.
It's not people looking for R&R on the weekends. Even though I would go to Fayetteville for the weekend and have a good time, and my wife and I went to Bentonville recently and had a great time.
Oh, absolutely. And I've just spent 2 days in Bentonville this week trying out some of those new restaurants. You know, they're popping up everywhere. MOD, which stands for Modern Ozark Dining. I went to Scotch and Soda, which is the name of a restaurant, not a drink in this sense, is another one I went to. But the culinary scene at Bentonville is becoming a really part of their story, along with the arts now.
And it will be bigger in the years to come with that whole culinary center that they're pulling together.
Yeah, with Brightwaters, you know, they've got that 8th Street Market that they're opening up. I'll be doing a column on that soon. Just tremendous things going on there. So things very much plugging along. And our old tourist attraction there in Eureka Springs is now trying to attach to that, which I found interesting.
That's good. All right, so let's go across the state. Let's get back to our musical heritage here and talk about the home of some of the best blues in the nation, Helena, Arkansas, where the big King Biscuit Blues Festival has been for years. But you've written a column about some good things happening from an education standpoint.
Yeah, you know, for decades, Roby, we heard nothing but bad things, if you read in the media, about the Helena West Helena School District. It was twice taken over in the state, once while I was still in the governor's office in 2005. It was under state control in 2008, and then Mike Beebe came into office and he had to turn right around in 2011 and take the schools out. It got out from under state control again last year. They have passed a major millage now, and they're about to build a new high school complex of about $27 million. Test scores are up for the first time in 4 years. So for decades, the only good education stories you read out of that area were about the KIPP schools, charter schools.
What do you think's moving the needle there?
Well, I think there are two things. I think the state finally forced the hand of the business community to say, we've got to do something about the Helena West Helena School District. They got behind it now for the first time in many years. Most of your business community, most of your whites, to be honest, had abandoned that school district. They are now supporting it in addition to the KIPP school. And I think that Helena is one of those small towns where we're seeing competition really working. I wrote a column, Sunday's paper, about Andrew Bagley, who is president of the school board there at Helena West Helena, and he is highly competitive against the KIPP school. He's quick to tell you that, and I think that's a good thing. I think Helena is becoming a little test tube, if you will, of where we see a charter school come in and the public school turn around and respond to try to make itself better.
We'll keep an eye on that. All right, we're going to let Glen Campbell take us home today. So there's been no load of compromising on the road to your horizon, has there, Rex Nelson?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Right. Thank you for being here. Always good to catch up, buddy.
Thanks, Roby.
Right,
I appreciate you.
All right, that's all for this week's edition of Talk Business and Politics. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.